The voice of Indiana County, WCCS, AM 1160, 101.1 FM. Indiana in the Morning, brought to you by First Commonwealth Bank. And joining us in the studio for this morning's edition is State Police Trooper Clifford Greenfield. Welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me, Chuck. I appreciate your time.
Now, we've had folks on the last week or two talking about getting ready for the start of another school year. And you're here to remind travelers and motorists that there are some important things that you need to remember because school is just about to start.
Right. It won't be too long before we see school buses back on the roads. So as that time approaches, my best advice for drivers would be that on their daily commute to and from work in this next week or so, look for areas where you know there to be school bus stops. Anticipate those areas. Try and recall where those areas were last school year. They may have changed since then. School districts are required to set the locations for those bus stops, and there's a chance that they may have changed some of those locations. So be aware of that. Think about your stopping distance as you would approach those school bus stop locations. If there would be any curves or hills nearby. Think about where you would need to start braking. And when you do come up behind a stopped school bus, it's important that you do make drivers behind you aware that you are slowing down. You may even consider activating your four-way flashers to alert drivers that you're stopped. I'd like to remind drivers of the potential penalties for a violation of, it would be Title 75, Section 3345, which is entitled Meeting or Overtaking a School Bus. That requires that drivers approaching a stopped school bus with the stop sign arm extended and the red lights flashing, they have to stop at least 10 feet behind that bus or in front of that bus if they're coming from the opposite direction. If they do not stop and they proceed past in violation of this section, that is a fine of $250. It is a 60-day license suspension and 5 points on their driver's license as well. So it is very serious. In Pennsylvania, 700 or approximately 700 drivers are convicted of this section annually. So I want to remind drivers of that severe penalty for a violation of not following this section, meeting or overtaking school bus. For parents with children who may be using a school bus to get to and from school, I want to remind the parents that school buses are actually the safest vehicles on our highways. There are very few crashes involving school buses. Even though students are not using seat belts, there's a term called compartmentalization, which takes into account the design of the seat. And should the bus be involved in a crash, due to their size and structure and weight, the forces are distributed very well throughout that vehicle. So they are still very safe, a safe mode of transportation. In fact, students on school buses are actually 70 times more likely to get to school safely when taking a school bus as opposed to riding in a car. I thought that was an interesting point I came across in my little bit of research. For your child, remind your child to be especially cautious at the bus stop. Tell them to wait at least 3 giant steps away from the curb. Be very careful when getting on and off the bus. Make eye contact with the bus driver. Wait for their instructions and use the handrail. When they get off the bus, tell them again to make eye contact with the driver before crossing. If they have to cross in front of the bus, they should be crossing at least 10 feet in front of that school bus and making eye contact with the driver and watching for traffic.
Of course, now we're in the middle of August, and each week it's going to get a little darker in the morning hours.
Right.
And a lot of folks, they just don't think, maybe I should turn my headlights on.
Oh, yeah. It's so important for you to make yourself as visible as possible in those early morning hours. Again, as I mentioned, during your morning commute, think about those bus stop locations, areas that may be darkened areas with a lot of tree cover. Watch for those areas. Think about those bus stops where a lot of children may be playing, and think about potential scenarios where children may be running out into the street or crossing the street to get the bus. So make yourself as visible as possible in your vehicle by turning on your headlights early in the morning.
I know that school districts all work very hard to promote school bus safety. Do the troopers ever go out and talk to especially the elementary students during the year about school bus safety?
I do visit schools as often as I can, and when I'm asked to come and visit, other troopers do as well. If there is any school district or local school in the area that would like myself or another trooper to come and talk with your students, we would be more than happy to do that and reinforce this message of safety. We don't want to see any students involved in a crash or be hurt when they're going to and from school.
Trooper Cliff Greenfield with us this morning on Indiana in the Morning. I know a program that you folks are involved in each and every summer, Camp Cadet. We publicize it here on the radio. How did that go?
This year's program was an excellent success. We had a lot of fun with the cadets. They learned a lot, and it was a very, as it is every year, a very challenging, grueling, demanding week for them. We wake them up at about 5:30 in the morning. Those first couple of days, they're awakened to the sound of lights and sirens, and every day is a marathon for the cadets. Every minute is scheduled.
Do you get many folks returning for a second year?
We have initiated a program. We invite the top male and female, and this year we invited the last year's top alternate male and alternate female back to be senior cadets. So they're last year's graduates who returned for this year's program. They serve as role models for the other cadets, and they also act as our assistants basically throughout the week and assist us with various tasks.
I know a big project that the Indiana Barracks is getting ready for, and some folks may not realize this, but you guys are going to be moving into a brand new headquarters building across the street from where you're at now on 286. How's that going?
Right, it's going very well. The new location will be directly across, as you mentioned, across 286 and just a couple hundred yards toward Walmart or toward 422 from our current location. It will be a larger building with more space for us to work. We're very much looking forward to that.
And I was quite surprised that you told me an approximate number of current officers that are stationed at the Indiana Barracks. What was that number?
Right. Offhand, I would just say approximately 40 to 50. I don't have the exact number, but there are quite a few troopers and civilians who work at our station.
Yeah. Now, do you have a opening date on when you think the new facility will be ready?
I do not.
When it's done, they'll tell you, go across the street.
That's right.
Well, we want to thank you so much for stopping by. I know that we'll be speaking with you or somebody from the department throughout the year. But again, it's school bus safety, pedestrian safety, and we'll just remind folks, just be a little bit more alert, turn those headlights on, and especially the first couple of days, because sometimes the younger children, they have to get into that routine as well as we do.
Correct. Yep. And thank you for helping us to share that message.
It is Indiana in the Morning. We are the voice of Indiana County. WCCS AM 1160, 101.1 FM.